Hello, and welcome to part 4 of the Last Lifeline asset recreation process, and the finale of this mini-series. If you haven't watched the first 3 parts already, then please do, because it's going to provide a bit of context for what this is, alongside some more asset creations. I'm not going to prolong this introduction, so let's begin where we left off in the contestant order. But here's the thing, this next contestant isn't on the counter. That's because their asset actually isn't being remade, for reasons I'll explain in a second, and reasons you can probably see right now. This is Silhouette, and that may be considered notorious in terms of object type here. And once again, you can probably see why. It's because they're humanoid. Now, was that the only reason I'm not revamping this character's design? No. The other reason why I'm not revamping this character's design is because, honestly, a revamped design would not look that different. Silhouette as a character is just meant to be like a strange blue mass that spends most of their time shapeshifted as a night character. And they are pure blue. There is not meant to be any color variation on them whatsoever, except for their face. Plus, yes, it is true that they were a pain in the ass to make the first time. But even if you could argue that I could try to shade them for improvements, tell me, how difficult will that be to maintain consistently across different poses? I'd rather use the cheat that is adding a bevel effect for shading personally, thank you very much. But I'm adding this character here just so we know they all exist, since they're getting the short end of the stick here. Now we shall finish off these assets for real this time. But oh boy, what a challenge we are starting this final part off with. Although Moped overall took the longest amount of time to create, not only does this next character come in second place for the sheer amount of time it took to create their asset, but considering they are the second smallest sized character in the entire cast, they are the most detailed in the entire cast as well. The deliberate fusion between 2 different character designs, and even 2 different characters as a whole, and when you combine 2 characters that individually would not be considered a good friend, you get one of the most wildcard characters in the entire cast, Snowglobe. She could be considered to be rather similar to the inanimate insanity character Yin Yang, but in the eyes of most people, this isn't a balance between good and bad personalities. They are opposite personalities, yes, but a major factor in this balance is the fact that both sides hate each other. One side of this character, under the name Bo, whom individually you can see drawn here by the creator Cozy Snowglobe, could be considered what most of the Democrats in the USA see what most of the Republicans as: dumb, uneducated, and quick to anger. And the other half of this character, Snow, could be considered the closest thing we'll ever get to an objectification of Marguerite Taylor Greene, a hardcore Christian who believes the Bible should define the entire world. Yes, religion does exist in the Last Lifeline universe. It's mentioned in the disclaimer posted in the Chromatic Embassy. You don't have to like that fact, but denying it doesn't make it any less true. Furthermore, they are both opposite and other things too. Bo is considered to be quite radical behavior, and Snow is considered to be more timid. Snow also can be considered to be quite the neat freak, while Bo isn't afraid to get down and dirty whenever they have to. Now do you see why they hate each other? But how does all of this affect the design? Well, for starters, the snow portion of the asset, or the main snow globe itself, can be considered to be rather cleanly and well kept. Also, the cross design on their wooden base was inspired by the actual reference drawings of snow that Cozy Snowglobe had posted, although it had never been ported into the combined character of Snowglobe before. The glass ball of the snow globe was made a bit shinier, and although it is true that the falling snow is static currently, I might try to make it so that it is more animated down the road. I just didn't think too much about that here. However, the bow that is physically attached to her is not well kept at all. It is all torn up, and some patches had to be stitched back together since she was just far too damn reckless here. The wear and tear on the bow wasn't prevalent in the old version of the asset, but I added it because it was realistic to Bo as a separate character, hence the references. And I was also contemplating having parts of the bow be covered in dirt as well, for the same reasons. But I'm pretty sure when Snow's in control, she would hate to see that constantly. Hence, why it's not a part of the permanent asset, since she'd likely just wash it off quickly. So yes, Snowglobe as a character was damn time consuming. But honestly, I'm nowhere near as frustrated about this asset as I was with Moped's asset. Since you want to know something about how I feel with this asset, I honestly think this was one of the best I have ever made. I feel like the amount of time in this asset really came through personally at least. and although they are complicated to the eye, I feel like everything makes sense here. And truthfully, when it comes to time taken, I'd rather be spending this much on a rowdy character like Snowglobe instead of the peace-loving character Moped, since it just feels more fitting this way. Oh, Jesus, please forgive me, because I have sinned. And do I say that next because I'm a hardcore Christian myself? The answer is no. But to be fair, although this next character is also Christian, much like Snow of Snowglobe, they are much more liberal about it than Snow ever will be. Strawberry Milk on the surface is a fair amount of a sweetheart, and although they are slightly religious, they won't ever try to talk over it to you constantly. She is also probably the only character in the entire cast who wears clothing on a regular basis, being her skirt. And no, Snowglobe's bow doesn't count because she physically cannot take it off even if she tried. Strawberry's milk is stored within a mason jar, but they do live quite dangerously because they never keep a lid on. The overall shading of the glass jar was updated as per the glass shading pointers that Indigo had given out for characters like glass of water and light bulb in previous parts. I didn't reduce on the amount of internal lines as much this time just because I wanted to make sure it was obvious what the shape of the jar was supposed to be, nor did I want any shading to overlap and make the fill all blurry. There is a bit less milk inside of her this time, probably because of the fact that it's difficult to maintain a higher level without spilling it. But having no milk inside of her would kill her, which is why she can't just let it all spill. The milk is her blood. Also, the straw was adjusted in this asset so that it would actually lean up against the top of the mason jar, and not look like it was defying gravity. And the sticker lost its line art in order to feel slightly more realistic, although I didn't change the line art of the strawberry on the label at all. I did, however, make said line art darker. Finally, there's just her skirt left. Drawing her skirt was slightly complicated only because I was uncertain on how I should have dealt with its design. I didn't change the line art of the skirt that much, but I did want to change the shading of the skirt to look more proportional. And also so I could minimize the amount of line art on the skirt. Took me some time, but in the end I did get a result I was decently happy with. There's also the tie on the top of her skirt, which didn't change much except for recoloring and trying to make it fit more properly to form. And yeah, that's strawberry milk. Don't drink her. Next up is an object whom, for a while, I had absolutely no idea what they even were. This is Tablecard, and when I saw him for the first time, my brain, which was filled with nonsense, constantly thought he looked like a basketball nets post. But that was not true on so many levels. It's just I had never actually heard of a Tablecard that much before I saw the character. Or, at least not in the form that Tablecard was, with only his head being an actual Tablecard, and his main body being a specific design for a Tablecard holder. And that caused some issues to take place in the old version of the asset, such as his mouth not being properly connected to the pole that holds him up, or the paper not actually looking like a table card. By the way, the mouth is the little O-shaped piece that you would see on the top of this specific table card holder, which is why it being not connected was a major flaw on my part. But really, the design as a whole didn't change that much. The shading was just adjusted slightly for the most part. The head could have been reshaded in a way similar to the way Blank Square was reshaded earlier on, but I wanted to maintain some variation between object types. So, although the paper was given gradation similar to Blank Square, the shading was mostly fit around the table card holder that his head was sat on. Although you do not see the mouthpiece in this asset remaking sequence specifically, you will see it in the asset comparison. And the fact that Tablecard overall wasn't a complicated design meant that not a whole lot about him changed in this remake, other than what was just said. This guy is such a winner, he won twice in Cal's Lifeline. The joke is, they placed 11th in the camp version, but on a related note, they were also eliminated on the 11th episode. What a way to mock the winner with numbers, to be honest. Speaking of which, the design of this character is really simple actually. Although the original version of the asset did still pose multiple flaws here, such as the reference of the character made by the creator, cost, not having the exclamation mark at the end, the text overall being horribly made, the body being a bit too red, etc, etc. But since they are just a rectangular prism with the text winner on the front of them, they were not that difficult to revamp. Really, most of the changes here involve giving their body some proper gradation, which now goes from white to a slightly more reddish white at the bottom. And for the text, I didn't try to draw it out by hand this time. I just used whatever font I believed would look best for the winner as a character, just with some rescaling modifications. And then I gave the text some shading as well by utilizing a tool known as masking. And really, that's it. Next up, I shall revamp the loser. And no, not really. The next character isn't really the loser, but that's a joke because this character is named the winner. Yeah, you don't get it. Whatever. Never mind. That sucks. Time's ticking, my friends. Don't be lazy, or else the clock will get you. Okay, I don't think that's actually a reference to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in any way, shape, or form. But when the name of this character is Time Gear, I couldn't help but make some stupid analogy. I don't really know anything about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, so I don't know what purpose a Time Gear actually serves inside the game. But the idea of Pokemon and exploration is reflected well when it comes to this character's personality. Time Gear is quite the explorer, even if they are rather timid for the most part. But talking about the design now, you might notice I started by creating some rather large line art hexagons. That's because at a base level, Time Gear is really just a bunch of resized and rotated hexagons with some grooves to make the gear. Plus, it's more efficient than some of the other ways I've tried making hexagons from scratch. One of the major changes I made to the line art as a whole is that I made Time Gear's grooves stand out a bit less. Even if I did like the original shape of Time Gear, the grooves are a bit too long for an actual Time Gear. And the creator, Moo Maximus, seemed to want me to fix that at least a little bit. And thus, I did. Really, that was the only really major change I made to Time Gear's design. Most of the fixture designs that are engraved into a Time Gear really only changed in terms of color, but I did have some troubles with trying to remake them properly. Also, the shine of the Time Gear was made a bit more tilted since it usually does look at least a little better in my opinion. The gear as a whole did look a bit too rounded in terms of design in my opinion, and when I showed Max the asset remake, they pointed out the same. So off camera, I did make the edges of the gear a bit more straight. And guess what? Time is up. It's been a long journey, my fellow viewers, but after 26 assets made, we are at the finish line. And remember when I mentioned Gamer Token a while back, and alongside that mentioned how there were 2 token characters in the cast? Well, I hope you're patient enough to see this other token character, whose name is a lot more simple than Gamer's. This is Tokeny, and remaking his design was really a bit of a breeze because the design of Tokeny is almost exactly that of Gamer Token's, just without the headphones, and Tokeny being cyan blue instead of green. However, I did not really want the process of remaking this asset to be that simple for the viewers, so I did copy over the design of Gamer Tokens in a bit more of a complicated manner than I really needed to. And for the most part, the process of making Tokeny's asset is exactly the same as it was to making Gamer Token's asset. The major difference here is that while I mentioned having removed the 2-letter symbolization from Gamer Token a while back, Tokeny kept their 2-letter symbolization of TP. And they are not going to be losing it in this remake either, because what would it be changed to? I don't know, and I don't think you'd know either. I did try to make that symbol a bit more by hand than just using a font, also primarily so it can make perspective of Tokeny in the same way I wanted to make perspective of Gamer Token. And with that, my friends, we are done. All 27 Last Lifeline assets have now been remade. If you stuck with me for all 4 parts of this mini-series, thank you. It means a lot. A full compilation containing all 4 parts of this mini-series will come soon, with some possible enhancements. So if you're interested in that, like and subscribe so you can keep being notified about that. And if you want to stay updated for Last Lifeline, then join the Chromatic Embassy, my Discord server linked in the description below. And I'll see you all later.